Welcome to the Psanctuary podcast, where ancient wisdom has a modern awakening. For thousands of years, psilocybin has been used as a sacrament. At Psanctuary, we're reclaiming that right, honoring the roots while rethinking religion for a modern world. If you've been looking for something real and something psychedelic, well, you've just found your people. Come on in.
All right, Amy, here we are. We finally made it. This is interesting. This is the day, like right at this time, 3:30, 10 years ago, I was just getting hauled off. It was like 1 p.m. when they came in, and it didn't even, I don't know. Anyway, there's been a lot that's on my mind today, and that's not what we're talking about, but it is interesting that we are here having this conversation on the 10-year anniversary of Courtney and I being arrested. Um, before we even get started, I just want to thank you for not just being here today, but for just being part of this big, weird journey over the last few years. Um, so I wonder if you could just kind of tell the audience a little bit about what brought you into psychedelics first. We can get into Sanctuary, but really the mushroom.
I think so I had always been very afraid of psychedelics. Um, I remember reading Go Ask Alice, and she took LSD and claimed spiders were all over her and she scraped her skin off. And so I was like, I'm not ever going to try that. People that I grew up with, some did. But I met Gary, and Gary was my partner for 5 years, and he came from England. And so he had a lot of experience. He like grew up in the rave scene. So I'm growing up in Just Say No. And he's growing up in the rave scene. And so I remember the main thing that he said is you have to make sure that you're in a safe space with people that, that somebody's there to take care of you if you need help. And then he talked about different things that, like maybe change the location, or he talked about putting something on the back of your neck, like a washcloth or whatever. Anyway, I'm going too far down in one direction. But I guess it was curiosity that led me to it, because he talked about it in such a different way. So anyway, I
Was it
started out with it being more of a recreational curiosity thing.
okay?
It
So
wasn't something that was sacred.
he was on the recreational side as well.
He was, but he also, I think that's the only place he ever felt at peace and
Mm.
and really could be himself. Yeah.
Mm.
So to him, that was like the place to be if we can live there.
So did you end up having some spiritual experiences in those recreational settings?
Yeah, so for me, the timing of it all, I started out with recreational, and within those recreational experiences, I remember starting to form the opinion that all of this is one great big amoeba.
Yeah.
Yes. It's all one big body. We're all part of the body, just like the millions of cells are part of our body. We might not necessarily think of their welfare all the time. um, so I started thinking about that, but I was getting to the breaking point in mental health at that time. So I think that set and setting had a lot to factor into it, because I was researching or reading about all kinds of things and also being taught these things within the LSD space. So I remember lots of like understanding physics, understanding like the rules of the universe. I wanted to write a book about the rules, energy and how it works, how we're all attracted to each other, manifestation. So LSD to me was like the mind. The mind was sharing with me the information. And then it also allowed me to allow my inner child to come out and play.
Mm.
I got to experience what that was. So I thought, and it was the first time ever that I be felt connected to and truly believed in God. Prior to that, I was very a seeker.
Hmm.
So it LSD connected me to God, and it opened up the floodgates of all this information. And it makes the world a whole lot more fun because if numbers mean something and colors mean something and animals mean something and all the different religions all the way back to the beginning of time all connect and they all mean, to me it's like it was almost like here's the rules of the game, like going on the adventure to find the golden I don't know, like giving me the information, like here's all the cool stuff, like here's all the rules. Now you want to go play?
So
Um,
I'm sorry, what were you say?
no, go please.
Well, I was gonna ask, how much mushroom experience did you have? Was it all LSD?
Yeah, so my very first mushroom experience was in May of 2020.
Okay.
And I thought going in that mushrooms were very much like LSD because that experience was like me just enjoying myself and thinking everything was beautiful and looking at photography like it was really cool art. So it was just a real kind of fun experience.
Hmm.
So when I had my first experience with Sanctuary, I was completely I what I was expecting and what I experienced was totally different.
Hmm. Hmm. Why don't you talk about that first experience a little bit? I had totally forgotten that your first mushroom experience was there with us.
Yeah, so in May of 2020, I had an experience myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
Um, yeah. But so my second really was with you. So
So
I
what
didn't
your
have much experience. My experience was LSD experience.
so your first mushroom experience though, was it difficult as well then?
No, no, that's the one I was saying. It was like everything was beautiful.
Ah,
I
okay.
thought I was the coolest artist, like a photographer. All my photos were the best. And
Okay.
I just had it was like I had fun, like recording the experience and really taking in everything around me. It was like really super fun. Yeah. So it's like I thought that mushrooms were going to be like LSD. They're not the same at all.
There's some similarities. Yeah, but then you turned that mushroom trip inside the next time and that was a very different.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that. Interesting. Sorry.
No, that was it. I wanted you to let you sit with that for a minute. I mean, it is interesting.
I really wish that I would have taken better record of each of my experiences because I learned a lot in a lot of them. And what happened was some LSD experiences flashed in my mind where I had gone inside.
Hmm.
Like, oh,
Go ahead.
at one time I remember feeling like all the grief of all of humanity. And I had these drones circling around me the whole time. I guess that's not really going inside though, is it? I remember like working with the chakras and like turning on things that had been turned off. And I had like robot things hovering over my knees and my neck, like peeling layers and layers and layers of stuff off of me, like they were there in a construction zone or something. There were traumas. There was stuff I was looking at in my past. Um, I was doing a lot of analysis of my life. I was looking at like 7 year cycles, and I was tracking the things that like what are the stories we always tell? Those are really our traumas.
Hmm.
So I went to middle school and I went to these different things, and so in the LSD space, I was exploring but it's not like mushrooms. I did a lot of work, yes, with LSD too. It became like we were trying to have our own trauma healing center out of the house. And I think that, I mean, I hadn't intended to talk about this today, um, but the power of community, we didn't have anybody to integrate those experiences with, and we were doing it on a very frequent nature. And I was coming up with all kinds of like, I'm running around like, we're all Jesus,
Hmm.
or the numbers, they say this, I ended up in a psych ward for 6 days, or a behavioral health place, behavioral
A
health.
prison.
Yes. So, if I would have had a community to integrate with, so my experience with trying to do it on my own versus doing this in community is wholly different.
Hmm.
Um, and it's really, really important, I think, if people are going to be doing this, somebody they can talk to about it.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I want to. Can we kind of explore the trajectory of your mushroom experiences overall? And so, like the first experience you had, it's a sanctuary, was in 21 or 22. When was that?
it was 22. I actually wrote them down. I wonder if I could find it in preparation for this. Yeah,
Hmm.
22.
So can you
Um,
kind go ahead.
well, 22 was like the old model when Sanctuary first started.
Hmm. Hmm.
It was like the retreat center model.
Hmm.
So I was at a really nice house with a review water, and there was a few of us there, and we were really highly cared for with company and one-on-one talks and all kinds of stuff. It was really, really good experience.
Hmm.
So that was my first experience.
Well, and if we could more kind of speak, if you could speak more to the nature of your experiences as they've evolved. So, like starting with that first one was really challenging, and you've had a like the evolution of the work that you're doing here feels really valuable to share, if that makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, the first time I felt like it was like 3 hours on the floor, sobbing and being and kind of writhing, feeling nauseous. My body hurt everywhere. And I felt like there was a punishing male god that was telling me I better surrender. And when I did, I found peace on the other side. But it was very, very punishing. Sickness, 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 everywhere, sickness. Um, Trying to think about my second one.
And just, you don't have to get specific necessarily about each experience, but there's an overall arc here that,
Yeah, I mean, this time last year, I faced for myself by myself, and I remember calling it Independence Day, like Freedom Day.
Mhm.
Um, I've always had an issue with nausea, and I remember one of the first times I held space for Sanctuary, I got car sick. And I left that ceremony saying, I am not going to get car sick on the way back, my intention. And I did not get car sick. And getting the message that it's fear that creates sickness. When you're in control, you don't have the motion sickness. So every single experience that I have had with the mushroom up until recently, I've had a nausea and feeling sick and ick and crying and sobbing. And, I went to a celebration wanting to dance, and I ended up feeling the pain of the whole earth. So at that point last year, Independence Day, I I remember I got some ginger and I had some cacao And I set the intention that I want to feel safe with the mushroom. I want the mushroom like to be my friend. Like I have a relationship. Like I am safe with the mushroom. And therefore, if I'm safe with the mushroom, I'm not going to get sick with the mushroom. I'm not going to have nausea. And I did not have nausea. And I also did not have nausea the day with John
Okay. Hmm.
when I was doing posture work under the influence on a retreat. Um, that I remember like there was I wanted to go in, I wanted to be the one who goes and laughs and plays. So I went and laughed and I went to the laughed and play people, and it was so overwhelming, the laugh and play, that I couldn't stay there.
I remember
So
that.
then I went back to the other end where it was like shady and nice, and there was somebody writhing in pain, and that was too difficult. So then I came into the middle. So I've learned a lot about energy and what energy I'm picking up. But yeah, there was a point where I think I transitioned from, somebody said it the other day, the mushroom being my savior. I'm in such despair. Please save me. It's so everything's
Mm.
to, I'm friends and I feel safe with the mushroom, so I don't need to be so sick or, I don't know if that's what you're thinking about.
Well, I'm not necessarily thinking of anything specific. I'm kind of reflecting on my observations of your uh, how your trips have manifested over the years since I've known you, and like it's been really difficult. You've had several years of consistently persistent, challenging experiences. And I feel like the one that you just came out of in Ohio that we did up there, um, there was still some of that for sure, but it felt like there was quite a bit of movement. Like you have been really excavating a lot of very challenging material. Um, and I'm just kind of like curious how you see yourself in that process.
Yeah, it's really quite a evolution and a journey. Um, Paying attention to my body, like recently, I've noticed that I can stand with my shoulder blades up and out. Like I didn't even know that was a problem. I had
Mm.
been coward. Um, I was thinking about the snake and the turtle. Of course, the turtle is also, the land we're built upon, I suppose. Um, I feel like I keep stepping. So I feel like there's like line lines or something, like you level up or you shift into the next thing. But I keep thinking I'm there, and then I still have difficulty. So there's still more work to be done,
Mhm.
but I feel a lot like more I can breathe. Like I didn't realize I couldn't breathe. Yeah, I want to move into the next phase of having fun, like bringing back the playful side, because I don't think I feel safe to do that.
What do you think it would take for you to feel that?
More time, probably. I guess practice it, add it into my spiritual practice, having fun, being playful.
It's easier said than done, believe me. I know, I know. But I also know that you've made a lot of progress, like a whole lot of progress in the last 2 or 3 years. Um, like now that you are, I mean, I think I've heard you say that you consider yourself a spiritual person. Um, and you're speaking of a spiritual practice. What's that look like? How does that show up in your life? What is your spiritual practice?
How does that show up?
Yeah, what's your spiritual practice look like?
It's a nation of so many things. Um, so I guess my belief system that guides my everything. So if I stay connected to this belief system, everything that I've been learning shows me that everything is a mirror. Like I created you in my image, the, the duality, light and dark. So, and everything that my understanding comes with, it's all inside of us. So it's like all inside out from what I was thinking before, like that everything's a projection and that all of us are God. I heard the other day somebody said, I'm the ocean in a drop, not a drop in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're all shining out, whatever it is, projecting out whatever's inside of us, the God within us, we are projecting out. Then we have a hell of a lot of power, for one. No, we had. um, but also that if so, I was raised with treat like the golden rule: treat others as you treat yourself, or treat others as you'd like people to treat you. And that's like in pretty much all religions. So I keep trying to come back to, as long as I'm being good to myself and I'm feeling aligned with whatever decision I'm making, and I remember that I am also God. And if I'm aligned to doing good for myself first, because I'm projecting out to the world, then, but also for everybody, that I'll be taken care of and I'm safe and I can even co-create. And that's fun if you get to co-create, because then I also believe like we would have harmony, like a beautiful piece of music all connecting together, and all the beauty, all the different, if everybody were allowed to be who they are and do what they feel called to do, like we would just have all this harmony. So I guess I keep trying to stay true to that, and then therefore do my best to be an example of that. Um, but I just keep coming back to, if I'm doing good, I'm safe. I have abundance because I have power to manifest. Um, we're not alone. There's enough for everybody. We can regenerate. But it's like, so I feel this calling to do work that is gigantic and vast and really highly impactful. And at the same time, then I have that question of, well, if I'm just to love myself and that heals the world, then maybe I should go play some tennis,
It's an
hang out at
interesting
the beach.
it's an interesting dichotomy there. What is it? You're a hermit, what?
Yeah, I'm a hermit role model.
Hermit role model.
So, yeah, I wish that I had a bet. I mean, honestly, like if I were to judge my spiritual practice, you said, what is your spiritual practice? Like, I
Mhm.
don't wake up every day and do these certain things,
Mm.
but
Oh,
I
are you
take
really
on a
spiritual then?
couple of days a huh?
Are you really
Yeah,
spiritual
because it's not a
then?
practice. Like,
I'm
am I
just
doing it
kidding.
every day? Am I consistent? Am I disciplined? Yeah. But I guess I'm like in and out of all kinds of things and then pulling them all together.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, what you spoke to in terms of kind of understanding the outside world as a reflection of your inside world feels like one of the most powerful concepts to consider. And like in no way am I suggesting you need to have a regimented spiritual practice. I just kind of want to understand how you relate to this concept of spirituality. And that right there, my inside is my outside, like is one of the fundamental teachings, like you said, of all spiritual traditions. And I'm curious if you does the outside world look different to you now than it did 3 years ago? Because like, and what's really kind of had me thinking about this was the what you've done in terms of activism and your desire to have impact. Like, how how can you see the evolution of your spiritual practice and the evolution of how you engage with the outside world? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think back then I was kind of in a savior mode. Like I want to take what I've learned and go help an organization. Um, I think so. One of the things I think we all realize is that at the core, we're the same people as we always were.
Mm,
So some of the things have not changed. I remember one of the ladies saying, Amy, you need a witness because of all the things that I was feeling. And I think I felt like I misunderstood. But back then, like I was transitioning out of a career that was safe and I was pretty successful into trying to transition into something else. I have thought about like the people that you're with and attracted to. So that was when I was at my where everything was crumbling around me and I was doing I was things were not under control. And so I am with folks who have been had a lot of trauma happen to them and they've been really misunderstood and unseen. And so I do remember like one of the big messages I got from the LSD is there's certain imbalances or what's central and then you're going to attract either who you are or who has like the opposite imbalance and then that solves the thing and then you go up a level or whatever.
mm-hmm,
Like they were really I mean these folks have had a lot of loss and a lot of struggle and was I there because I also had that level of loss and struggle and I was at that level of despair.
mm-hmm,
I don't know maybe, but they're also very very strong
mm-hmm.
and very very like I guess I never lost my ability to try to stand up and fight and voice, you know. It's really exciting the progress that that group of people has made. There's an amendment in the state of Ohio, a bill that wants to be. Well, anyway, um, there's something that may happen, and I'm excited if it does, and they have not given up. Persistence. Um, yeah, I remember. So when I moved into Columbus, I remember I would take walks, and nobody would wave to me. Nobody would look me in the eye, and I was like, Columbus people are rude because I had grown up I had been living in a suburb. And I didn't not Columbus people are rude, but like, why don't they want to look at me or connect or whatever? And lately now, when I take a walk, people smile at me and look and wave. And so, like, yeah, that energy I had, all the stuff that I just let pile up and pile up and push it down, push it down, push it down. I'm carrying it everywhere I go. People can probably sense that. And they're like, I'm not going to look at her.
If we could all be so aware to understand that, like, it's giving us immediate feedback pretty much all the time. Like,
Well, and yeah, that's the other spiritual practices is like I see it everywhere. If I'm connected to it, I see
mhm,
it everywhere, and there's
mhm,
messages everywhere. So it's like receive.
mhm,
But when I feel disconnected, it it's not there. So I wanted to try to figure out how to stay connected longer. But everything's on a wave, maybe.
Well, do you feel like you're staying connected longer for longer periods of time now than you did in the past?
Yes.
So you're getting what you want.
And before LSD and mushrooms, I was never connected.
What was your upbringing like in terms of spirituality? Just non-existent or what?
My grandparents, my grandparents, um, on my mom's side were Catholic and they were heavily involved. And so I went to church with them occasionally. I liked how it was so traditional and there was ceremony and everybody got dressed up and it was like honoring something. Um, and then there was a Catholic church that my friends went to that I'd go to every so often, and it was more relaxed. Like you could wear jeans and they had festivals and stuff. My grandmother on my dad's side was Methodist. Occasionally I'd go to church there. I liked that church better because it felt like we were more like talking about and reading something rather than Catholic was like it was just a different teaching method or whatever. Um, I had decent experiences, but I always had hanging over my head this idea that you must bow down to Jesus Christ and accept Jesus Christ into your heart, or you will burn in hell for all eternity. And so I was like, wow. From like 5 years on or 4 years old on, like when is it you first learn that? And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God. And my mom was an atheist. She was, or she is an atheist.
Oh,
Um,
so she was
yeah.
going
So
to
my
hell.
mom, so I was atheist. My I, they they baptized me Catholic. They baptized my brother Methodist. Um, I remember my grandmother's sister was a nun. So my grandmother, who's Methodist, her sister was a nun, and we went and visited the nuns, and they were so nice to me, and it was like a really happy experience. Um, I remember in middle school when a bunch of my friends kind of like shunned me. I found a new friend group, which was all the Jewish people. And they kind of just let me into all the Jewish stuff they did, which
Hmm.
was neat to learn about. Um, but I basically was just always like super like, if I believe this, my mom will burn in hell for all eternity. If I don't believe this, I might burn in hell for all eternity. But now I have to bow down to this dude that doesn't know me. It was just so confusing to me. And trying to read the Bible. I remember a friend of mine, I asked her if she would help me memorize the Lord's Prayer. Because growing up without a church, you get made fun of.
Mhm. Hmm.
I remember my parents actually went to the school because they would have them pray before we ate, and
Mhm.
like they were to like that. You're not allowed to do that. I felt so uncomfortable because I didn't know how to pray, and I didn't.
Did they, your
They
parents,
ended up stopping it, but I don't know if you remember things if I
right?
remember it exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, if your parents, if you were in it was a public school then?
Hmm.
You were in a public school that was religious enough that they were praying, or at least the culture around it was religious enough that the people were praying. And then your parents went in and criticized that, possibly even helped to put that to a stop. Like, it has me questioning to how much, like, to what extent you were even unknowingly, um, kind of the criticized or seen as a problem. Like, if your parents were coming in,
Oh yeah, I guess that could be, but I don't really I mean, maybe they just complained about it, but I thought that they asked for it to be changed. I,
well, I
I
mean,
don't know.
even if
But
they
I
just
don't
come in and
remember
complained,
that
it's
being
gonna.
kids that being kids.
I lost you, broke you
We
froze
just
it for a
froze,
second.
Eric.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. I guess that means we're not supposed to talk about that. That's one Steve taught me. If something happens like that, it's change the subject.
Okay, all right, I'll move on.
I don't, but yeah, I mean, my parents, yeah, interesting.
So what's your kind of personal relationship with God or Jesus or like not just spirituality, but kind of whatever spirituality is pointing to? Like now, how do you?
Um, I I remember in 2015 having a conversation with my son and Gary about the fact that I believe it's all of the religions are true and everything that's ever happened, and we tell the story about it's true.
Mhm.
So so there's that. Like it's all a cool history, you know. So even going further into like deep thousands of years ago time
Mhm.
stuff, like all that's true. For my own personal self, I guess it would be like meditation. So I either write down the questions that I have and I'm putting it out there in the universe that answers will come, or I'm meditating on either just trying to listen, I guess. Um, Putting my feet in the dirt, walking in the grass, getting sunshine. I think there's a lot I try to I feel like there's more ceremony. Like I look at a lot of these religions and their traditions and I'm like, or even like the way they used to have like a 6 course meal with the different silverware, like building in more ceremony, like moment to be just here. Like I used to always have music on. Now a lot of times I just have silence driving. Um, so more quiet.
Mm.
Um,
So, but do you have a when somebody says God, what do you think? What comes to your mind?
Everything.
Okay. So, like you have a concept of something out there that is behind all of this then? I'm just really curious on how you.
So so I don't think it's male or female. I think it's non-binary.
Mhm.
Um, but I do see different gods, like a male god who's more like the mind, and then like the god that's more like the earth, that's more female. But they are both also God because God is everything and it's continuing to expand from whatever it started from, just like a human being that so I see like you are God and I am God and the so I guess I've been influenced a lot by the qigong that I'm learning, like everything is qi.
Mhm.
Um, so if you think about I even think about stuff like people don't like cities because they say there's no nature and I'm like that is nature.
Mm.
It's just us as little ants running around and we're building our little cities and but if you take
Mm.
the energy of that if you take the energy of that back to its original source, it's all chi. So
Mhm.
everything is God.
Mhm.
All the things that we call bad are also God because you couldn't know they were bad unless you had some mirror or something. But yeah, that's what I try to like bring it all inside. It's all chi. If you're also chi, it's like the water in the ocean where it all just flows together. But then I want to think like, okay, I've spent enough time and in the sky thinking about all that stuff. Like I would love to just experience the physical world here So I want to add more, like I feel like there should be a balance between all of that and then just being here and experiencing life. Like that could also be a religious practice or a spiritual practice.
Oh
Like,
my
oh my
gosh.
God, what a freaking playground that we've been given by God. Thank you, God, for this gift, this opportunity to be here. This is so cool. And then go instead of trying to study all the time about all this other stuff that takes me away from experiencing all this now.
Hmm.
But I guess I had to do all that to figure that out. But I'm still not necessarily practicing it. So we got to undo the, I don't know. I think about the ego too as a tool, not, you don't want to necessarily, you don't want to kill the ego. Your ego
Hmm.
is your friend.
Hmm. It's like even like in terms of when like biblically uh Lucifer, for instance, I think I just recently kind of started to understand this more deeply, is that um for one, like Satan and Lucifer are two separate, those are not the same, and that we speak of both in terms of evil. Lucifer is lucid, clarity, light. Lucifer means the light bearer. And the the imbalance of that is where there is too much light, too much Lucifer, if you will, is when we get into it's all love and light, it's all spiritual bypassing, it's all good, there's no such thing, And so what you're speaking of in terms of balance is reflected even in that concept, because when we have too much light, then we end up in darkness, so to speak, right? Like even being blinded
Well, and that
by.
brings me back to the Savior. If I'm
Hmm.
waiting on the Savior, because I think I did that a lot with the mushroom or with the meditation or with whatever it is. Like, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to cure me.
Hmm.
So if you don't have the Savior, you have to turn on your own power and you become the God.
Hmm.
And then when I say I'm a God, people don't like to hear that.
Well, and then that can get too out of balance as well, right? Because so it's
Right,
it's
because I'm
it,
also just an animal,
right.
just like all the other animals.
Hmm.
And we give all the other animals a lot of grace.
And very little to ourselves.
And my dog can't help but murder groundhogs. She just can't help it.
So back when you were a corporate executive at Chase, did you ever imagine you'd be helping to run and execute a psychedelic church?
Never would I have ever expected that at all. No, not at all. Um, and I will say I was an executive director. I don't know if I would say I was an executive. I was an executive.
Executive director, isn't that like even
Executive
more?
director is high enough level to be proud of.
That's even more than
Um,
executive. That's like, okay, yeah, yeah, you're a boss
so
lady.
it's interesting. So I wonder if I went back into the corporate world now, if I would be a badass. Like I could be next level
Hmm.
because I think I connected too much with it in my identity
Hmm.
because I'm really, really good at this, or, you know, it keeps me safe because it gives me, I guess, money or status or whatever, makes me feel good about myself that I could achieve such and such. It was really hard to walk away from because I was like, without that, without my children, who am I? I expected that I was planning to wait until I was 55 and retire. And I had a certain amount I was saving. So that when I was 55, I would retire and I would travel somewhere in the winter, which I'd still love to do, sanctuary members. Um, um, and just, I don't know. I would really love to have a conversation about what retirement means. It's like everybody's waiting till this date when they can finally retire because they need health insurance and they need stability and they want to just travel and play tennis or whatever. That's good. But like, could there be some sort of like, I've learned a ton and I've saved some money up. And so I'd really love to go out on this venture because now I know who I am. Like in between,
Kind of like
I would like a federal funding for program like that,
kind
please. Like no 401k penalty. Um,
of like waiting on that savior, isn't it? The retirement, like waiting on my savior.
yeah, and so a lot of the stuff I was learning, and I don't know, I mean, so far that it's not just mental health that this can help us with, it is also our physical health. Because as we heal, those things that we are holding on to that are creating that stuckness that creates that disease and it's able to move, then we can have better physical health or get ahead of it.
Mm.
Get ahead of it. Like, don't wait till you're. I was 46 when I had my first experience. One of the questions you asked was, what are three people I'd want to sit
Right,
for?
wait, that's the end.
Just popped in my head.
That's the
I
end
was
of the
like, I need to tell you
conversation.
this.
You better wait up. You better hold up. I just love how excited you get, Amy. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this running the church, though. You have been the reason that you are being interviewed right now is because you are part of the foundation. Like, yes, you came on a retreat after Sanctuary had already started. We were like a year or so in operation, but you are the first non-founder board member that came on. You've been very actively involved in Sanctuary for about 4 years now. Is that right? Maybe call it three. Um, I would love to hear you just kind of share about your experience in this very unique journey, especially. I mean, you have been in a psych ward for psychedelics. You have been a corporate leader. You have lost a partner to suicide, which you've talked about in another episode. You have such a dynamic history that has brought you to this place. And I'm just really curious about your kind of broad perspective on this work that you've been contributing so much to.
Yeah, one of the things I would really love to be able to do is to measure the impact, because if we could measure the impact, everybody would drop everything.
Mm.
And, but you have to do the work. You have to do the work. Um, I guess initially I went into this because I didn't want anybody to suffer the way I was suffering. Um, and I had learned a lot with psychedelics or entheogens. Entheogens gave me a lot of information that I felt like it gave me a purpose and a vision. I'd been seeking a purpose and a vision. So I'd felt I was like, how am I supposed to do this alone? I don't want to do this alone. And I think I had a lot of growth still to do because I still think I was in that whole savior, like, oh my God, I got to go save the world now that I know this stuff. And we see that, I think, a lot with people that, yeah. So I was one of those. um, but I meant well. So I was like, I really want to create just a whole new way of doing things. And I want to help people heal and not suffer and be able to bring out their true selves. And the world could be so different. Like I see like the regeneration of this planet. I see people healing generational trauma and not passing it on. I see ceremony being brought in more. I don't know. I just see the impact is so great. That's that's why I guess. I mean that I quit my job partly to work on myself, but partly because it was like the entheogens gave me information that made me want to change my purpose to enable this, I guess. And so when I came upon Sanctuary, I guess again, it wasn't as sacred to me. I was looking for a way to remove creative blocks. And I do think of creativity as from the creator,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to remove creative blocks. And so I wanted some mushrooms, and I came upon the church. And my path with this church, like at first, I would call into Sunday services and I would cry the entire time. But it was like the one time a week that I could feel not so dark. And a lot of that was because the people on the call could see me because they also had some of the belief systems I had or had seen some of the stuff I had in the psychedelic realm, or maybe they just had some similar spiritual beliefs. But I had not had that community, so I found this community that could see me. And then we had the first retreat. I had a time that I helped hold space. We had a camp out. I don't know. I just dove in because everything that you were doing and everything you were doing aligned with what I wanted to do. So I felt like I kept asking, where's my tribe? Help. I need people to help me do this. And so I sent that message out, and the universe goes out and they find the people and then they introduce us.
Mm-hmm.
So, but at the same time, I got so much benefit from everything. Like I've learned so much and I've had so many experiences and I've made so many close friends. And I thought I knew back then, but no, I know a lot more now, or I've experienced a lot more now. And Sanctuary has been a huge part of it all. I don't know if I'm,
Yeah, you're okay. You're good. You're doing great. Um, it has me like there's it's really challenging to be a um a member of a community that you're also a leader in, and to separate out like your own personal journey as someone who is benefiting from the community and also someone who is helping to build the community. And so,
yeah. And in my train of thought, trying to answer the question, it's like I lost the question.
mhm, mhm,
Um, like what perspective is it coming from? That's one big mushroom experience. I mean, that's like the shift in perspective, like taking a camera and moving it a little bit is huge. The mushroom, thank you for that.
mhm.
Um, so was your question about my own personal experience, or was your question about my experience? Like why did I want to be a director? I guess
No, I mean,
without the mushroom and without LSD, I don't think I would have reconnected to myself or reconnected to what we call God.
mhm,
I think that I would have continued down the path of feeling sad and depressed and anxious and clenched and seeking, like, is there a God or not? Or I don't know if I ever would have, like I've said, I'm officially no longer depressed. Or, I've said that I don't know if I would have ever got there.
mhm,
And so initially it was because I don't want other people to suffer like me. And I think about the people I've gotten to know. I spent 20 years with a combat veteran who served in two wars. And like how it could help combat veterans or losing my partner to suicide, autism, that my own personal like depression, anxiety, whatever you call it, emptiness. I wonder if emptiness means no connection to God.
Hmm.
So I wanted to bring that. And then I thought once people have that reconnection and they're able to heal, then they get to be who they are. And I just saw this really neat world where we're all kind of loving and kind to each other and have a lot of fun. And also more, the environment's growing back and we eat yummy food and dance and play. And I mean, there's work to be done, but like we're doing the work because we want to do the work and it fulfills us. And there's enough to go around. We got to just, we are way more powerful than we think. If we
Hmm.
believe we can, we can. That's what Gary had on his truck. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
And what do you think for yourself?
I haven't given up yet.
You have absolutely been one of the most fucking diligent like you have been so committed and you have continued. I know I've said this to you 100 times, I'll say it to you 100 more times. You just continue to show up when it's fucking hard. You continue to show up when you're having a really shitty day. And I know that in those original conversations about inviting you in to be on the board, that is one of the deciding factors that Courtney and I really kept coming back to is that Amy shows up in fucking tears and continues to show up. So that is huge. That is huge. I am really still though like I wanna know better. I would like to hear you speak more to first of all um kind of the 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 your emotional evolution as it relates to the work that you're doing in Sanctuary. Because what you said about emptiness being like without God or um, you know, purposeful work. I feel so often that one of the underlying sources of our depression, um, hopelessness, is that so many of us are not living lives that are in alignment with our spirit or our passion. And so I'm just kind of curious if you could speak to how much, whether or not showing up, even though it's really difficult at times, for work that you do feel passionate about, for a community that you feel passionate about, how that's impacting your mental and spiritual health.
I think it helps because I always have to reconnect and have faith
Hmm.
rather than relying on an outside source. Um, uh, I'm having a hard time staying focused. So I remember my therapist saying, "Why do you care so much what they think? As long as you're okay with it." I've had to continuously. So when I left my job, I started to volunteer a lot on a lot of things for free. And I've had to continuously say to people like, I am getting a return on my investment, or I am like, so I'm always having to kind of, I don't know, why are you not charging these people $400 an hour? Or
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I guess I have this vision. I remember spending so much time trying to figure out what do I even want? Like, who am I? What do I even want? I'm not sure if I
Hmm.
even still know fully. So there's that. There was a lot of time kind of in agony about like, what do I even want?
Hmm.
Who am I? Um, I would write down kind of what I wanted, high level. And if I look back at it, those things are happening. So then I really start to believe in manifestation because I'm like, oh, there it is. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm off track. It's not coming to me.
It's okay.
Mushroom, God, what would you like me to say?
Don't overthink it. It's all
Don't
good.
overthink it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one of the big messages I have been earning my keep.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to earn your keep if you don't have any connection
Hmm.
because you're kind of on your own.
Hmm.
You're out there in the wild by yourself.
Mm. It's that grace thing again, isn't it? Do the birds have to earn their keep?
Right. Right.
It's so interesting how we put all this pressure on
All right. We froze
ourselves.
again.
Oh, I got you fine. That's weird. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, there we are. Yeah. It's just so interesting how much pressure we put on ourselves.
Yeah. I'm waiting on when I finally release all of it and I am truly my true self. Guess we're not supposed to
All
talk
right,
about that either.
there we go. There we go. No, I'm not. I'm not reading it like that. uh, but no, it's like this balance of like having inspiration and also allowing the inspiration, right? It's like we want to like you and I are so similar on this. I feel like that we get these big ideas and we get really like inspired to do a thing, and then like there's all these like nuts and bolts and logistic things that like, oh gosh, well now the thing can't just flow. And so like finding that balance of allowing inspiration to flow and also like taking the patient methodical steps uh, is it's an interesting place to find yourself in, especially in something like this that is building community. Because there's like so many resources around us, and yet those resources are people that have emotional needs and are in varying places. And most of us coming into the psychedelic world right now are still, carrying a fair amount of trauma and working through all that. And so, I don't know. I've certainly seen from the outside that your involvement in this meaningful work seems to be very positively impacting your mental health, your physical health. You seem in better physical shape. I mean, I know you just had your knee surgery and whatnot, but maybe valuing yourself is in part what allows you to accept, you know, those that operation and seek better.
Yeah, I thought about that too because I had given myself the responsibility of if you really believe this stuff, you got to heal your hip on your own
All right,
because
yeah,
it will, yeah. And at one point I was like, no, I need to love myself enough to say I want to go play
hmm
and cut it out of me. It's not my responsibility. I'm not a martyr. Cut it out of me. But I did ask for it. I asked for it and I'm going to bury it.
Oh yeah,
I was like, it's my spiritual right.
and just be sure to bury it far away from that groundhog hole because you don't want your dog digging it up.
Yeah. So it is really, really neat to be able to use my unique skills and talents to do something so purposeful and meaningful and impactful as Sanctuary. It's really, really fun because it's not just having ceremonies. It's like everything that you would have to do at a normal company. on an entrepreneurial grassroots level, also being a Schedule One substance and illegal. So let's throw that in too.
Yeah.
So like if you were going to leave some cool like corporate America job, this is kind of neat. Because yeah, there's still website building, there's still marketing, there's still like people that complain and contracts for work and there's no taxes. We are a church.
Except on your payroll, of course.
Yes, yes. Yeah, there's still accounting and there's still like product development or whatever.
Mhm.
I mean, we can word you the corporate words are. So it's really, really neat to be constantly creating something new, evolving it in the right policies and infrastructure and yeah. So from that side of me, it's really cool.
What's been the most
Um,
enjoyable piece of this for you? And not necessarily like it can be like a work related thing, or maybe outcomes that you witness or events that you go to. Like what's been like the most enjoyable
the
for you?
most is really when we have a group ceremony and when we get together and we're together.
Hmm.
Um, but I think being able to see people over the last 4 years. So there are people that were on that first retreat that I still talk to and I get to see on Sunday service. Um, I've made friends all over the place. Um, and when we experience something like this, so sacred or so difficult or so meaningful together, and we have to be vulnerable in front of each other, it deepens that connection. So I would say just all the cool people I've met, and then also seeing how all of us have grown. And people come in and out, just like normal life. But I think it's that and the time together in ceremony, or maybe not in ceremony, but after. So
Hmm. What's been the most difficult?
the whole reason I came to the church is I'm still having the problem. It's like you have all these great ideas. In my mind, I have all the ways to do it. It's all so simple. And then I sit down at the computer to do it. And I'm just like, I want to be anywhere but here. So I still have a lot of resistance. I still procrastinate. And then when I procrastinate, I beat myself up. Um, I'm still struggling with discipline. I can feel it right now, the feeling of and that's where it's like, okay, well, maybe I should just rest, like I read something about procrastination and incubation and I really liked it. Like maybe I'm not really procrastinating, but it's having time to churn, trust that if I put it out in the universe, an answer will come. It's still having to practice it. Like I might know all this stuff, but do I actually really practice it?
Hmm. So are you saying that the
Yeah, so I
mushrooms?
still struggle with procrastination and feeling worthy, um, feeling like I'm good enough, feeling like I'm contributing enough, feeling like I'm doing everything I should be doing.
So you're saying it's not working. You're saying the church
Right,
doesn't work.
exactly. But I get my consciousness has been expanded. I have a lot more cool. It's way more fun. Like there's a lot more cool, and there's good people.
Well, and it is always so important to remember that these mental patterns that we are in, they didn't just appear overnight and they don't just disappear overnight either.
Yes. I have been recently making progress with, a lot of us do the internal family systems
Hmm.
where I actually have been talking to my parts or like seeing them like sitting around in a circle.
Hmm.
So yeah, I will say that not that it doesn't work, but um it's not a savior.
It's not a savior, and
And
it is a
that's where I'm like, I
process.
wonder if I would have had a chance at 25
Hmm.
to do this or at 15 and I learned a different way of being in the world or alert, understanding my emotions. I didn't understand. I I remember I was like 49 when I was like, "Oh, is that what shame feels like?
Mm,
That's shame."
wow.
And shame is the very, very, very worst feeling on this chart because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't want to. And I had been carrying that for a long time, but I didn't identify it.
Mm,
So, like, even understanding what my
mm,
emotions meant. So, if I just, I would like people to have the opportunity to do it, to participate with plant sacred medicines, whatever you want to call them,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to make friends.
Well, this is where the conversation
But
around community
as
is.
long,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
well, it's just like, you're reflecting on your 25-year-old self. And I think the same for myself. Like I had no community, no legitimate community to provide any kind of reflection or safety net or support in any way. The community that I grew up with was a judgmental community, as most people who grew up in a spiritual community are dealing with, sin and hell and all that kind of stuff. Um, and so to imagine that what we're doing is at least creating the opportunity for someone to have a more connected experience. I don't know if I'm being, you're frozen. There we go. Back. I don't know if you caught anything what I said, but just like creating the opportunity for the opportunity to have connection and have community, um, is really important, really valuable. Um, and I guess like it's interesting, within the psychedelic world, the lack of authentic community. And I guess I know I could certainly point to a lot of ways in which community has been extremely helpful in my psychedelic work. But for you, I'm curious if you can point out ways that you're seeing community impacting, like specifically psychedelic work in your life or in the lives of the members.
So I first do want to say I feel like I had a pretty good community growing up, like friends and family. And then I had my work community or my tennis buddies or you know, but at some point that started to fade and I had less and less and less of that. And that's where I think I did really struggle.
Hmm.
Um, Community in Sanctuary, I've just learned so much from everybody, like Kevin talking about breathing, or I don't know, just all the people who share. I learn a lot from all their different views and perspectives and where they've been. And um, but I think in ceremony, I feel like with that idea of that we are each other's mirror and we're in this big orchestra,
Hmm.
I feel like there have been people that have been at that ceremony on purpose because I needed to heal this thing,
Hmm.
or they needed to heal that thing, or each of those things needed to be seen. Um, so I feel like community is really important to it's like we're all connecting and being able to heal things within each of us that are mirrors of each other. And then also the land beneath us, I feel like is participating and also healing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like exponential, or maybe it's different. Maybe it's those parts of you that are out there that are being healed within. And then the balance of being able to go in by yourself and do it yourself, but then be able to call somebody afterwards and talk about it.
Hmm.
I called several people within the community and talked about my experiences as they've happened. Um, and then because they have different levels of experience or come from different places, I get different views.
Hmm.
If I would have had a community, I wonder what have happened differently, when I was using the LSD.
You probably wouldn't have been in a psych ward, which is a really important thing to point out. And you were highly traumatized by all that. I mean, you just went through a whole lawsuit and everything because of the treatment there and whatnot. And it just feels like that is really worth pointing out.
Yeah, and feeling safe enough to share all of that. Yeah, I felt seen as a drug addict
Hmm.
and the bottom of the bottom.
Hmm.
Um,
No,
and
it's
I
it's
felt like I was put on a witness stand each day. And it was like I learned a certain way that I must act and behave, and then I'll be let out. But if I would have, I was like, I wonder if you do LSD multiple times in a row, if you're just like living in LSD land or something.
hmm.
Yeah. And
I'll
then
let you
Gary
know.
Gary wanted to grow mushrooms and I said no because I was too afraid of getting arrested or whatever. And
Mm.
I think about like if he had got a chance to meet the sanctuary community and have space held for him in this most sacred way with mushrooms, which is totally different than LSD, if he may have been able to heal some stuff. Um, yeah, I mean, really having people along with me for the ride, knowing people for multiple years
Hmm.
and each of us sharing our experiences together is huge. Most communities that we have, like if I'm getting get it together to play cards, I'm not going to get my like I might try to talk about UFOs or something if people want to. But I don't think we have the opportunity
Hmm.
enough to, yeah.
That's one of the most kind of early things that really impressed me was people would come into Sanctuary and say, "Oh my God, I finally found a place where we can talk about these kinds of things." And I was just like, "Oh wow, this is just like what we just talk about all the time." I didn't really realize, I mean, I have been living in the bubble that I have been for so long that the majority of people are not talking about deep spiritual practices and experiences.
Yeah, so
Uh,
we've been taught don't talk about religion or politics.
you know, like what you said though about the psych ward and how you were treated in the psych ward just like hit me all of a sudden because like when they arrested us, I remember driving to or riding to the jail and they told me, you know, the only thing you could have done worse than this is killed or raped somebody. And I was just like, holy shit. Like by the book of the law, the only thing worse than having mushrooms is killing or raping someone. Wow. So like that just shows how societally drug use has been stigmatized in such a harmful way that people who need help, like yourself, couldn't even get proper help and actually end up further traumatized because of those experiences. And so, what Sanctuary is doing in terms of ongoing support and providing community for that integration and just holding space even after the experiences, which is sometimes we need more space held after a powerful experience than during it.
I still get messages from that first one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I do have to take responsibility. There were some other drugs involved
Hmm.
that made people freak out more.
Hmm.
But me talking about God and how the world is inside out and upside down, and
Yeah.
I'm
What's
now
that?
connected to the one.
You ever
Yeah,
see that meme of that dude that's like pointing at the whiteboard? He's got all the equations behind it. He's all crazy looking. Like that's
that's me. I was
been there.
meditating during, yeah,
I tried
yeah.
so hard to laugh during my mug shot. I just couldn't pull it up. I couldn't make it happen. I, what are your thoughts? Well, before we get to this, I haven't asked anybody this, and this is something been. I feel like this is something that I've seen you navigate pretty well. Um, and that's the semantics around religion and religious language and how like and maybe it's because you didn't have necessarily as traumatic of an upbringing. But like, yeah, how do you find yourself um, just like sitting with the religious language within the sanctuary community?
I like to look up words and dive into their roots. And if diving into their roots makes me feel good,
Mm,
um, like sacrament and communion didn't really mean as much as like they do have a I'd have to look them up again now, but like one of them was I think communion was like intimacy, emotional intimacy, like coming together. It doesn't necessarily mean you're eating
hmm
something.
hmm
Um, minister. Okay, well, what are you ministering to? Like, I don't know. I just like to look up the root words. And then when I
hmm
look up the root words, I end up diving into Wikipedia or something.
hmm
And I have to make sure it feels okay with me. And then sometimes I argue back. Like we had a podcast that we were talking about defiance, and I was like, oh my God, defiance.
You argue back?
Yeah, I like not things that have what is DE?
Like
DE
the
itself, the
prefix D.
prefix. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Um, so like or like deconstruct or delineate, like to deconstruct is to unconstruct something.
Anyway, yeah, I like to go to the root words and then see and think on it, and then I will argue
hmm
if I don't like it
hmm
because I'm very, very. That's one thing that I think anybody that worked with me could say is like if keeping us true to the vision, keep us true to the vision, and really letting that be like at the heart.
hmm
So anyway, yeah, I think that I would like us to reclaim a lot of things. So let's reclaim the religious terminology. Yes,
Yeah.
before it became tainted, could it have been that some of this started out with good intention?
hmm
Um, and then also, what does the word really mean? Like dive in a little deeper into what the true meaning of something is.
hmm
I think that we do a lot of surface level stuff and,
hmm
you know,
hmm
so, but yeah, I don't think I had really much trauma around any of that to be.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I feel like you've been really helpful in reclaiming that language for me personally. Like it's that was one of the biggest struggles for me was like minister, God, religion, stop, stop, stop. But like hearing you speak like to the origins of the words and going back to like what this really means, not what has been put on top of it, I have found really helpful. And I both love and hate your ability and willingness to push back. So thank you and fuck you.
It's funny, my granddaughter and my grandson were just showing me the other day, them both going like that, and it was the funniest thing ever. So that thanks for that flashback of my granddaughter.
What about reclaiming religion? This is the bigger one. This is the one that um like it doesn't feel like we're getting it yet as a even in the sanctuary community, especially in the psychedelic community, it really doesn't feel like there is yet that um kind of like we're taking this back the same way that we maybe saw that in the LGBT communities or the African American communities. And I just kind of wonder, like, what's it going to take for the psychedelic spiritual communities to say, like, oh no, we're not like using religion to justify our experiences. We're actually taking and like reclaiming religion as originating from the psychedelic experience. And I'm just kind of I'm curious like how Like, how do you see this
So
evolve?
religion to me, I should probably look up the word,
Well,
but religion to me is the structures and the rules. So I did want to write a book. It was BO with like little dots, C, body of works. And I wanted to take all these different things that I'd learned and all the rules of the game. I wanted to write them down, basically make a new Bible. And
okay.
then folks could like read it and they could, do these different things and then they could be cured and healed and reach the path of enlightenment.
Not ambitious at
No,
all.
no.
Write the new Bible.
And it would reconcile all the different other ones too. So,
Okay.
maybe Chat GPT reconcile all the religions, plus the ones that go way, way back, like the serpent, the
Mm,
great serpent that visited me.
hmm.
Um,
Which,
but
incidentally, for the first time in I don't know how many weeks, my snake has been like crawling around almost this entire time since we started talking. Interesting.
so I guess the problem with that is though, that is my interpretation at my point in my phase that like, so I could write that book and a lot of people could really think it's cool and it could help them. But if I tell them this is the only way, like this is the way,
Mm.
like I guess that's what the Tao Te Ching says, the way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we need to write a new Bible. And that's why I think about the whole Revelations thing. Like I'd love to write, write the book of Revelations. Like, what are the revelations that each of us have found in the mushroom space?
Hmm.
And maybe that becomes the book or something. But I feel like psychedelics teach us not to create that rule book and that each of us creates our own rule book kind of or
Mm.
but there are underlying truths that are all true,
Hmm.
but
Or
we don't
true.
want them in a way that makes people be imprisoned.
Is a truth and a rule the same thing?
That's true.
I don't know. I'm asking. I didn't say. I didn't. I'm asking a question. I didn't say whether or not it's.
Well, like, okay, so I was born into a time and space. And so truth to me was that there are people starving in Africa, so I should eat my food. And there's people in there's hostages in Iran or what like the things that I grew up with and I experienced, it just is.
Mm.
So I felt like there were rules because it just was that the speed limit was 55. So it just was versus here's the rule, you better do this. You've been doing 70 all along, but now I'm coming with this new rule book that says you got to do 55.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm going off to somewhere. I'm
Well,
lost.
I mean, it's one of the hardest. I think this is one of the hardest things to reconcile, and maybe why, at least within the psychedelic sphere and the religious worlds, while they come together and cross over, it's I can understand why it's harder to fully adopt within psychedelia because, like what you're saying, I find to be so true, is that the more you work with these plants, then the more you understand that, like, most rules are just like something somebody made up
And they made it up out of fear, likely,
out of
because
fear.
somebody got
Mhm.
hurt.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I guess the other thing is the more I learn, the less I know. So
Hmm.
who am I to write the book?
So, yeah, that's one of the I think one of the real paradoxes within the psychedelic world as you come to understand that like oh I have no and so like when you see somebody talking about like this is how psychedelics work or this is how you hold space then like for me it's like pretty much immediately oh they're kind of a novice because they're like think that there's a ABC order of operations here. And so I don't know. I'm so curious as someone who grew up where the religious experience was outsourced to Jesus on the cross and the priests on the altar to now being like fully on the other end of the spectrum where my religious experience is entirely up to me. where these they have to come together at
I think
some.
we could help each other in community and say, let's, you know, build your spiritual practice or build your religion. What is that? And
Hmm.
then maybe there could be discipleships for people to be disciplined around the thing that they think or something. Because so to me, it's bringing that ceremony in, and it's bringing in the space between the notes or whatever. Like,
Mm.
so if my spiritual practice is to wake up every morning with the five Tibetan rites, and that somehow connects my energy to God.
Hmm.
And then the next thing I do is to eat a healthy meal because I love my temple, that because I am a God and the God within needs to be nourished, or like to, but like whatever I think those things should be might be different than what you think those things should be. So I feel like it's like that personal responsibility, like maybe to be able to build our own. And if you don't want to build your own, that's cool. You could join any of these organizations that have come up with different ways to do it. But I would ask that you maybe dive a little deeper as to why they do it the way they do it. Like the Catholic religion, all the different rites of passage, that's pretty cool, actually.
Hmm.
But we might have not seen it that way. You might have been like in second grade saying, I don't want to go to CCAD or whatever it was called. What was
Right.
it called? Like, I don't want to learn
CCD.
this
Mhm.
and I don't want to. And then
Well,
if it was held down, like, you better do this because you're
right.
born into sin and you're a sinner and you're not worthy. And yeah.
Yeah, it has so much to do with how we present things. Like even baptism within the Catholic Church, like the kid doesn't even get a choice. Like you're baptized at 6 weeks old or whatever, it's like you don't get a choice. Whereas in some Christian religions, the baptism is held off until they're in their teens or till the individual decides on their own volition that
But
they.
I see that as like the root chakra needs to have stability in order for everything else to happen, the foundation. And so if at 6 weeks you go to your church and you say, like, I want to bless this child, I want to, I'm going to agree that I'm going to raise this child under God. Like, to me, I think that's a neat
Mhm.
concept.
Except for they tell you
It,
that your kids are going to hell if they don't get baptized, right?
oh, okay.
if your kid is not baptized and they die, God forbid, then your child just gets condemned to hell by default, right?
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
it's finding that balance
That's
where,
harsh.
yeah, right. You think
The poor
uh,
kid.
it's finding that balance of um, having our own very personal relationship and that relationship operating within the context of all the other individuals around us and their very personal relationship. And so I'm so excited about what this, the implications um, of the impact of psychedelics, particularly mushrooms, because you can grow your own sacrament very easily, relatively easily. And yeah, I'm just really excited about how this could shift religious culture in the US to, or the world even, to more direct experience with less to no dogma.
Yeah, because the less we know, the more open we are. Like, I guess thinking I'm like a child, you
Yes.
know,
Hmm.
who's out there just everything and loving everything. And they can do dumb stuff like pick their nose or whatever. And they don't have shame or, yeah, they're just, yeah.
Ananda still laughs about eating her boogers. I'm like, girl, you really gonna eat that? She's like, yep. I'm like, all right. Well, Jesus said be like the children, so here I go.
The Sanctuary Challenge.
Oh
Go on
God.
TikTok.
Oh God,
No,
no.
don't, please.
It is interesting. Like I find it relevant that every single time I take LSD, particularly LSD, I always have like had a moment where I'm like, oh, this is what Jesus was talking about. Be like the children. Wipe the scales from your eyes, remove the veil. It's all beautiful. It's all play. And that is so hard to do in the world that the adults have built.
Yeah, I mean, most of us, I've been so blessed to have the opportunity to leave my job and have the time to focus on me and all my healing. And I think most of us don't have the time. Like
Hmm.
we're raising kids and we're going to our jobs and we're cleaning our house and we're lucky to have, I mean, maybe we watch some TV and go to a concert, go to a football game. It would be nice if we had more time or if we knew that it was important to give ourselves the time and
That's
make
the
the
thing.
time.
That's the thing
Like I
is,
didn't know. I thought I was doing like love yourself. I'm like, what the hell does that mean?
Mhm.
And then I was trying to do yoga. I was trying to eat healthy. I'd go to a therapist occasionally. I'd journal. And then I'd shame myself because I felt terrible because I wasn't doing the yoga or I wasn't going to the thing or anyway. Yeah.
There's a whole other big
Yeah.
conversation that we could have about the
Yeah.
world that we create with our thoughts. And it's relevant. And we're seeing that, like, even we haven't really talked about it, but you and your vision for Zen, that is so much of what you're seeing in Sanctuary. Like, you've already spoken today about like the manifestations that you're seeing of the things that you wrote down years ago. And so just the more we can be aware of the power of our thoughts and the power of our desire and the power of our perspective. I was like,
I remember there was a person that was kind of advising me spiritually, and there was two things he said. One, look out to the horizon. There's always light at the horizon.
hmm,
And the other one was I don't know the Bible quote about if it's on tablets, like once you put it on a tablet,
hmm,
um, it will come to be.
hmm.
So you may have been writing on a tablet, and Courtney was, and Athena, and we're all looking for the thing. Of course, everybody wants an accountant. Every organization that I ever try to work with, oh, we need a treasurer.
Like, sweet. And you're like, yeah, I'm sick of it. I'm tired of
Or
it.
fundraising, and I really don't know how to do fundraising. If anybody knows how to do fundraising, give me a call. We would love some help because we see a beautiful vision of joyous communities supporting each other, connecting with the divine and
Through sacred
ourselves.
and ourselves through sacred mushrooms and each other. All right, let's get your question here that you wanted to answer.
Well, it was more at the time because it's really like I don't. So I was thinking Nixon
Okay.
healed from it. Then he would be like, I'm not going to ban the drug war. And then if the
Oh.
drug war never happened, I was born in 1972.
Yeah.
How would have my life been different? How would have all of our lives been different? And then I thought about like all the evil ones. Like people want to sit with the great knowing, like, I'm going to
Hmm.
sit with Gandhi or I'm going to sit with Mother Teresa or Jesus or what. But like the evil ones, like maybe that's where I have a big ego. Like I think I can make a change to something way back in history that would then.
It's
So anyway,
a neat
um,
thought.
but it was just when we were talking about politic type stuff and access and our religious freedoms and I don't know what we were talking about. But anyway, if Nixon had not gotten involved and made stuff, what would have
Interesting.
happened?
Oh, well, Courtney and I would have gone through our episode. A lot of people wouldn't. My whole family lost all kinds of land to cannabis. So, but this is, what's interesting? I recently heard it is still pretty, it's not like confirmed, but there are anecdotal reports that Marilyn Monroe introduced JFK to LSD and that his experiences with LSD are what shifted his perspective on Vietnam and all of the war mongering, and
Wow.
that is in part what led to him being assassinated. I forgot, like I couldn't say the specifics of what it was, but there was someone who was intimately knowledgeable of their relationship who knew that Marilyn Monroe was using LSD and that there was a period where her and JFK were knowingly together for extended hours and nobody else was there, and that he was a very different person after that day. So, you gotta wonder what the world would be like if our leaders were a little more cosmically minded.
Yeah, especially if they get the message that we're all one,
Hmm.
then we aren't gonna, like, I feel like we extract from each other like a commodity.
Yes.
And we wouldn't want to extract, we would want to nurture and regenerate. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know.
Whole different scenario.
It is a whole different scenario. So I wrote down the evil ones. I would want to hold space for the
Evil
evil
ones.
ones. So that
Genghis Khan, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin. Who else you got? Like, damn, okay. All right. You're all for the tough cases, huh?
well, and then I also thought about, you know, so Gary, I would
Mm,
love to have seen what he could have been had he healed his trauma and he could really be himself.
mm,
And then I think about um, the father of my children, um, you know, all the help that this potentially could do for combat veterans. Anybody that's experienced war or the impacts of war. I think about the ex-spouses of military. Like
mhm,
I'm an ex-spouse, so I don't get any benefits because I've been banished or
mhm,
whatever. So the ex-spouses, and then I think about suicide survivors, like all the things, all the things.
mhm, mhm.
But any of
Well,
us, like just expand our consciousness, reconnect with God, reconnect with ourselves, like that's huge. And I
mhm,
can't say everybody will. Everybody's experience is different, and every experience I've had is different.
mhm.
So, but I
Yeah,
guess to have the opportunity.
yeah, yeah. You give it a go and work with what you get. See what comes out of it. So what's a pointer? You've been now on both sides. You've been having space held for you. You've been holding space for others. Like what's a kind of like a pointer you might give to someone who is newly coming to the mushroom?
Um, keep it sacred. You don't have to rush, like, so maybe ease into it.
Hmm.
Make sure that you're with somebody in a safe space.
What does keep it sacred mean to you?
I guess sometimes I have taken it for granted or I've taken it like a supplement. Like I want to feel better, so let me eat some mushrooms.
Hmm.
Like I feel like there's so much value that we can all receive if we give it the time and the space that it deserves. Um, I guess keep it sacred. Like if you have an opportunity to act, I mean, like seriously, like to connect with the divine or to heal your stuff or to eh, like totally expand your consciousness, like that's really something to not be like, I don't know. If you want to have fun with it that's okay. But
Hmm. Fun can be sacred.
fun can be sacred. Yeah, I guess give it the space, the time, the focus, like be there.
Hmm.
Be wholly there.
Be holy there.
That's a H and a WH.
What about someone who is going into holding space? Someone that is newly, uh, yeah, um, taking the opportunity to support someone in this sacred space. What would you share with them?
Preferably alone. Have somebody else there with you that, and then to get to know the person that you're holding space for and understand kind of why they're there and more about them. I guess I have not personally started to hold space for people one on one
Hmm.
because I still am concerned about um what could happen. So I would always prefer to have somebody there with me. Um, I guess to breathe and to be wholly there. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, be focused, like be there, make sure you can really be there for that person and that you can focus on that person that whole time and that you're not somewhere else. Um, yeah, I don't keep it sacred.
I was gonna say it's interesting that on both ends of it, even like be wholly there, being present on both ends of this is some really excellent advice. Oh, perfect. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this again, weird and wild journey. I very often just like the story in my head is that I'm driving you crazy. And if that's the case, I apologize. I'm trying to,
I had a dream the other night that I pissed you off.
oh yeah.
Yeah, and you
Mm,
were disappointed or something.
no,
So,
no, no, it's not the case. Far from it.
yeah, I think again, like we were drawn together for a reason and you have a lot of value. I mean, so much you bring to the table. So
Mm,
much.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
I sure need my 6'2".
Yes, yes, yes. Do my
So
best to be a role model, but I'm going to allow myself to be I'm allowed to be a hermit now, it sounds like.
I'm telling you, this thing, Jeff and I were talking yesterday. He's a 2'5", and he's just like, "Oh my God, this is changing my life." Like to be able to human design, for those that don't know, it is an incredibly powerful personality assessment tool that really can help you understand yourself and those around you on a deeper level. And it's something that, at least in my own approach, I've been considering it in the context of people that we work with, and it's been helpful. So 5'2s or 5'1s like myself are uh, apparently 6'2s are the only people that can help save our reputation because we're fucking heretics. I'm a heretic, believe it or not. All right, Amy. Well, we
All
got this
right. Thank you.
live stream. Thank you so much, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
See you
All
soon.
right.
Much love.
Much love.